The other day, I was having this discussion with a brother, and he was saying that he's kind of tired of going to a masjid, and when talking about religion, he says it's just all arguments. And he said, one day I just brought up a point. He said, we're all arguing about religion. He said, but if I now have prayed instead of 4 rakat, 3, how do I actually make up that one remaining rak'ah? And they were all like, they were just like speechless.
Yes. But that's the thing, because they've not thought about the sijdat sahu. They've not thought about these other ahkam or other areas, or it's like, okay, a guy's got a cast on, because these are all practical issues.
Right.
We're out playing football. Someone slide tackles you. And at the time when you started playing football, you didn't have wudu. So he slide tackles you and you fall at a wrong angle and you break your arm. So you're in excruciating pain. Ambulance comes. They have to put the cast on. Now you have the cast on, and you can't take that cast off because it's a fitted cast, it's a solid cast.
No.
It's the one where they wrap it and they put water on it so it solidifies. So you can't take that cast off. At the time you put it on, you didn't have wudu. Now it's asr. How do you make wudu? Well, I mean, he just makes wudu. Yeah, but you need to wash your limb. And the cast is going from your wrist up to your elbow.
Good question.
So you can't wash over that area. So what do you do with the jabira, the cast? And the tourniquet? What do you do? Oh, brother, we shouldn't debate about these things. No one's debating. We're asking, what are we going to do?
And I say, oh, Allah is most merciful. It doesn't matter, like these things.
Yeah, we know that he is, but he's also let send down laws and say, listen, if this happens to you, do this.
Indeed, exactly.
So what are those laws? How do we carry this stuff out?
Well,
if we have a situation where someone has bought an item online, the item came in the mail, and it was other than the color that was advertised for whatever reason. And there's a piece of paper that's inside there that has typed, "Dear customer, we regret to inform you that we did not have the item in the original yellow. We only had the purple left in stock. Please accept this with our humblest apologies. Please let us know. Sincerely yours, so-and-so from team." Does that person, can he accept that? Because that wasn't what was advertised online. It was different color. Does he have to send that back? Can he have that item? Does he ask for a refund? Does he ask for a exchange? What can he do in that circumstance? Or if he's ordering online and it says this item has no image, but in the description of the item, it has the dimensions of the item listed. Having not seen the item, can he buy it? Those are all real things that happen in our lives. Or if you and I go to a car auction and it says this car is up for bid, SAS, sold as seen. Can you buy that car? Having it listed that it's sold as seen. Can you buy that or not? Or if someone says, listen, this car, I'm only selling it for parts. So whoever buys it, it's up to you what you do with it, but I'm selling it for parts. Okay, can you buy that car knowing that? Or if someone says this car has no engine, but I'm selling just the raw shell, can you buy that knowing it has no engine? You're paying full price for it. Can you do that? These types of things occur. These types of things occur where you're receiving. We discussed this when we were studying fiqh. When you get people that use ethanol to artificially ripen fruit.
Right.
Okay, if you own a shop, do you have to give zakat al-fitr on that or not? Whatever else. Is it even safe for us to eat because it's been artificially ripened with ethanol? Can we eat it? Like all these things come into our access into combat sports. Like, okay, can we get involved in combat sports? Because there's so many Muslims already in that. Never mind, can we? There's so many Muslims in combat. Should they be doing that?
Right.
There's Muslims in boxing, MMA, wrestling, collegiate wrestling, Olympic wrestling, sambo. Should we be involved in combat sports? Should we be involved in the Olympics? All those are fiqh issues that aren't going to go away. I get in a car accident. I have to be brought in. My specialist is a female. I have glass that's punctured me in my genital areas, my buttocks and other areas. Can I have a female doctor? Can I have a female doctor? The fact that most gynecologists are males and their clientele are females, is that okay? Because you don't find a lot of females that can do the pelvic examination. It's mostly males. Is that okay? Your wife is heavily pregnant. Her water just broke. They're going to have to do a forceps delivery. Dr. Williamson comes in. He's not Muslim. Is that okay? Is that all right? Or you go to the hospital. They tell you, listen, you've got a real serious problem with your spleen and your gallbladder. We need to get in there immediately. We're sending you into the theater immediately. We need to give you this, administer this medicine to put you to sleep. Is that okay for them to do that? Because the medicine may have opiates in it. Is that okay for them to administer the opiates to put you to sleep so that they can deliver the life-changing surgery to get that out? Or your doctor tells you, hey, your aorta is so worn, we've actually got to fit an artificial aorta. And it's a pig aorta. Is that okay to do? Or even if it's the artificial one, it's patterned after the pig one. Is that okay to do?
No.
Is it okay for them to take stem cells from your body and use them to help regenerate other parts of your body? Is that okay to do? Or if they tell you, we see that in your family, Down syndrome or autism runs in your family, and based upon the chemical examination we've done, that your child has a high possibility of doing that, we can do some gene editing to eliminate that. Can we do that? There's fiqh that's connected to can they do?
No.
Like all these things have to do with that. All these things are connected.
For example, when you enter a masjid in the summertime here in the West, so many people, or let's say some people, they tend to wear these tank tops. Now, in the Shafi'i school, this might be permissible but disliked. However, in the Hanbali school, this would be invalid, the salah, having the uncovered shoulders.
Yeah, because your shoulders are uncovered, you're walking around like this. It's like, and then because those tank tops as well, they tend to be short. So when you're going into sujood, then your lower back up to the beginning of your buttocks is now exposed too. When you're in sujood. So now that's another issue. Because those tank tops aren't long, they're short.
No, indeed.
So now you have another problem.
Right. So it's like, it even comes down like to the smallest thing, small, let's say, compared to all of the ahkam that we're looking at. Just the fiqh of clothing is important for the acceptance of salah, and also like the general appearance among the believers.
Yeah. And people will sometimes forget these things, or if they don't forget, they're neglectful of them. And there comes a point where neglect, sometimes it's not your fault, but then there comes a point where now that you know, hey, I'm lacking in this information. Okay, now your neglect becomes negligence because it's willful neglect. Before it was unwillful. Now it's willful neglect. Now you're responsible. And now you have to gather this data. You have to get this information. You can't just say, well, I mean, I did the best I could at the time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows my condition. Yes, he does. and you're going to be judged. You're going to be judged by that condition. You can't say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows my condition. He knows what's in my heart. Yes. And he knows what's on your limbs too. Now you're responsible.
And have you also noticed, Sheikh, as I think this is something very specific to the West, is as you've mentioned, when people talk about salah and, akhlaq and adab, a lot of the things that people talk about is often feelings. Like you go to a certain masjid, to a certain gathering, where we'll read something, we'll do either the mawlid or some dhikr, and we'll all go back having like a good feeling. But Islam is actually only practical, right? Nothing really to do with inspiring the feelings of the people.
I mean, here's the thing that people want to keep in mind. The ma'rifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ibn Qayyim al-Najdi rahimahullah, he says in Hijaz and Mauritania, that Allah is not known by the six senses. His ma'rifah. He is known by the proofs of what he's established. You say, okay, well, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not known by the five senses, his wujud is known, his existence is known by what he's established, by what he's created. Now, the response that someone has to that, how sometimes people break down crying in salah or other things like that, that's the body responding to when the ma'rifah is realized. When the ma'rifah is reached, the impact of that ma'rifah causes the shuddering of the heart and the quaking of the limbs and all those other things. Yeah, that's true. But that comes after. That in and of itself isn't proof. It's an indicator of ma'rifah, but it's not proof of ma'rifah. And this is one of the things that's important for Muslims in these countries to understand, that the first order of business is right creed and right practice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has established. Those other things that will come, those will come after. And those are indicators. So someone upon right guidance and right goodness, like Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, or others after that, cry in the salah or break down crying in the nighttime salahs or other things like that. Yes, that's correct. That happens. But you don't use that as the yardstick or the guide or the meter stick or the guide, like, oh yeah, that's the proof that person's guided. No. That's an indicator that he's guided, but it's not the proof. So if someone says, well, every time I go to my interfaith meeting, when the rabbi, the priest, and the imam stand together and they hold hands and they cut the cake with the same knife all together, I get a good feeling about that. Well, that's not proof in itself, because we know that action is wrong. What would be an indicator is, whenever I establish my dhuhr, I always remember how Allah has favored me. And sometimes I feel this feeling in my heart, and my tears come to my eyes. Okay, that's an indicator. But if you never got that feeling, would that take away the guidance that you're on? No. Wouldn't take away the guidance that you're on. Whether you get that feeling or not, that doesn't take away the fact that you're guided. It doesn't take away any of that. If you have it every day, if you saw the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you saw his image in front of you every day, that's an indicator of your guidance. But if you never saw a dream of him in every day, would that mean you're any less guided? No. That's an indicator.
And I've heard on more than one occasion where the believers say, "Oh, I've done my salah, but I didn't get any special feeling afterwards."
And the thing is, this is not for that, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Aqim as-salah li-dhikri." Establish the salah for my remembrance.
Subhanallah.
So dhikr won't always produce a feeling that you're thinking. It might sometimes in the course of that ma'rifah and the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ma'rifah comes to a point to where the yaqeen increases, and then a feeling will that can happen.
Right.
That can happen. And that's a fadila from Allah. It's something extra. It's a virtue. It's a fadila. But it's not matlub. It's not something that you seek. Oh, I just want to feel warm all the time. Well, no, that's not what you seek. You're seeking to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, in the course of that, those things can happen. But they're not sought out. And someone shouldn't say, oh, well, because I don't have that feeling, maybe I'm not guided. Well, no, that's not a proof. Any more than the guy that says, oh, I saw this in a dream last night, that my wife-to-be turned around, she looked at me and smiled. Yeah, the nikah should go ahead. How would that be a proof?
Subhanallah.
You don't even know if that's what that's intended. That might be an evil smile. You don't even know what that intends. Then you get married and you say, oh, the marriage has been terrible since the beginning. I don't understand what went wrong. I had a dream about it. It's like, hey, that dream might have been a smirk. It might not have been a good idea, man.
Your false interpretation.
That's it. But these things, they happen.
Right.
And people build, I can't tell you how many Muslims build their lives around a feeling or a dream that they have.
Right.
Someone will pray Salat al-Istikhara. Right after that, he'll go to sleep. He'll have a dream. He'll say, oh, subhanallah. What makes you think that dream is part of your Salat al-Istikhara?
Right.
What makes you think there's a connection between those? Okay, what if you had prayed Salat al-Istikhara and after that you had a dream that you were eating chicken with rice? Oh, well, that's obviously just a dream. That's not okay. Why were you able to make the link with that, but not the link with the other one?
Right, you're deceiving yourself, basically.
Why would you do that? So these are the things that, as Muslims, we have to be careful of when we seek to implement knowledge and acquire knowledge. We have to make sure that we're not led by our feelings. As I said, feelings are an indicator, but they're not the lead. I can't tell you how many times where when I was led by my emotions or my feelings, I wound up engaging in criminal behavior. because at the
Subhanallah.
time you're
Right, of course.
led by your emotion. You engage in criminal
Like
behavior.
anger. Yeah.
Yeah, you get angry, or you're vengeful, so you demand revenge for what you believe was a wrong that was done to you.
Right. And
So you engage.
like some of these people who, because of the anger, they resort to takfir upon people.
That's it.
But it's like you should remain upon iqtisad here, even though you might be angry.
That's it, because they say, well, they made takfir on me. How can I not make takfir on them? Why would it come to that point? Right. So there comes a situation where you have to try to cleanse your heart and polish it as much as possible. And one of the means of polishing the heart is through ilm.
Allahu Akbar.
Because when you have ilm, the ilm that you have of your ihsan, the ilm that you have of your yaqeen and your taqwa and all these things, all those are polishers of the heart. And they're all part of the akhlaq munjiyah, or the munjiyat, the things that polish, perfect, and adorn a person. And those things keep away the muhlakat, like the things that destroy you. They keep away those things.
And I'm just wondering, because since you mentioned about purifying the heart, every time the believer performs a certain act, so we have the fara'id that there's no doubt each and every Muslim must fulfill, but then you have also praiseworthy sunnah actions. Now, one should make the right intention and perform the action, but what about renewing intentions? Is that something we should also focus? Let's say 20 years ago, I made the intention every time I do this, but should I also focus on renewing my intentions when I do certain acts?
Imam Abdullah Mubarak, anhu, one of the 40 qadis of Imam Hanifa, he said, for one act, there may be many intentions. And what scholars say that means is that you should regularly renew your intention for a given act, right? To remind yourself of that action, because sometimes an intention can become polluted or diverted. It might not necessarily become corrupt, but just diverted. Like, so for example, if you're doing a good deed for someone, you might forget, or you might lose some of that intention and think that you're doing him a favor in hopes that he might do you a favor one day. But in reality, you lost. So now you've lost some of that intention. So you have to like renew that intention. No, I'm doing this for the sake of Allah. I'm hoping for his reward. So you renew that intention. Right. So every time I've had to go out of the country I'm currently residing in, I only have 4 reasons for being in Dar al-Kufr. I always have to, before flying back into this said country, I have to renew that intention.
Yes. Subhanallah.
Because otherwise I don't have an excuse. If I don't have an excuse, it becomes haram for me to be here.
Wow.
So every time I go out and come back in, I have to renew that intention.
Interesting.
Because you can't be in Dar al-Kufr without one of those 4 excuses. Why you have to go? So those things, you have to renew your intention. Every day when I wake up, there's stuff that I do, whether it's reading or review that I do, I have to renew my intention. You have to always renew your intention. Because things can happen where maybe you were reading this book. Oh man, I've just got to get it done today. I haven't done my portion. Let me just get it done. Okay. That's the intention, just getting it done. All right. Well, and you find that when I did the hifl that day, it wasn't as good that day. Why? Because I was just intending just to get it done. Okay, so when you renew your intention, what happens after that? When you better your intention, you renew it. What's going to happen then? Okay, well, when you renew your intention next time, you might have to review that other page again. Why? Because it wasn't as strong as the other one that you had the pure intention for. So now you have to double up on it to fix it. So these things, the act of renewing intentions or reminding yourself of what your intention is important. Same, people get married. It's like, the husband and wife, they should renew intention as much as possible. You wake up, it's like, okay, so, people get angry. Oh man, I can't take it anymore being married to this person. I can't take it. This person's too much, or they're always annoying me. Okay, is that why you married them? Did you get married so that you would not be annoyed? Because if that's your position, then you shouldn't get married at all, because there's nothing. There's no person that at some point outside of the prophets won't do something that will annoy you. There is no such person.
Right, indeed.
Because different things happen on different days. Yeah. What you thought was a cute attribute on one day, it annoys you on another day.
Interesting.
Oh, I love it when she does this. It's so cute. But then one day, I don't know, you're tired or you're stressed or you're whatever the case would be. Now you're annoyed by that thing. Is that why you married her, so that she doesn't annoy you? Well,
Allah.
no. Or, oh, look at her little hands and feet. They're so cute. Look at how short she is. But then other days you get annoyed because she's always going, I need help. I can't reach so
Yeah.
and so. Now you're irritated.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Subhanallah.
But it's like did you marry her so that she would be short or medium height, or what did you marry her for?
Right.
So you renew your intention.
Wow, mashallah.
You renew the intention. Let me
Interesting.
just renew my intention real quick.
Mashallah.
So you understand that, okay, this nikah or this zawaj that I've done, it's not about this zawaj or nikah that I've done. It's not about annoying or not being annoyed. This nikah or zawaj that I've done, it's about an act of ibadah that I'm doing for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this person that I'm with is helping me complete this ibadah. Just like for Fard Salah, when you're praying in Jama'ah, that person that's in Jama'ah with you, he might annoy you sometimes outside of the Salah, but it's not about that. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's about fulfilling that obligation. And that person helps you fulfill that obligation. At the end of all that, you have to remember, nikah is a type of ibadah. It's a type of
Mashallah.
transaction. It's a type of ibadah because it involves you, Allah, and another creation.
Naam.
So this person will help you do that obligation. They will help you.
Then I'm also wondering about one thing. The believer who in this world does not implement his obligatory actions. So he believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has not denied Allah, but for some reason did not implement the action. So did not pray the salah, zakah, and all the other abwab and so forth. What is the result of such a believer on the day of resurrection?
Alhamdulillah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said in a hadith, and these are hadith when Imam Suyuti's Jami al-Sahih or Al-Jami al-Sahih, he has said, Man tarqa salah faqad kafar. Whoever abandoned the salah has committed kufr. Man tarqa salah faqad ashrak. Whoever has left the salah, he's committed shirk. In another narration, Man tarqa salah fahuwa kafir. Whoever left the salah is a kafir. Man tarqa salah fahuwa mushrik. Whoever left the salah is a mushrik. إن الفرق بين الكفر والإسلام ترك الصلاة. The distinction between kufr and Islam is abandoning the salah. So we see these issues of abandoning the salah, where Ibn Umar narrated a hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. بني الإسلام على خمس. Islam is built upon 5. شهادة لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله وإقام الصلاة, and establishing the salah. It is the only action that the Sahaba said abandoning it equaled kufr. It's the only action.
Right.
Other actions, if someone was neglectful of or what have you, they're sinful.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't necessarily constitute kufr if they didn't make it halal or haram.
Mm-hmm.
But salah is one of those ones.
Wow.
Because salah yusalli also is to do with connection. It's connection between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a contact, salah is. So if someone says, well, like someone said to me once, that someone told me once, a Muslim brother was narrating that a Muslim brother told him once about some problems he's having. And the Muslim brother narrating this said, I told him, why don't you make dua and pray to Allah about this? And he said that the individual said back to him, I do, but Allah never answers me. And I said, of course he doesn't. And he should expect that. In fact, he should expect Allah's destruction to come not long after. Because of the hadith in Suyuti's collection where the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever among you sees wrong or wickedness and justifies it and doesn't try to stop it or prevent it, that person, a time will come in which Allah's destruction will come upon him all of a sudden. Then he'll call on Allah and Allah won't answer him. So maybe this person's in that condition. So he better make tawbah now or whatever else before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attribute of intiqam, his attribute of vengeance is unleashed on him. The slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this circumstance has to look at his obligations that he's due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these are obligations that must be completed. And that's why we were discussing about the danger of feelings, because we make dhuhr when we feel tired and we feel energetic. We make asr when we feel wonderful and when we feel sick. We make maghrib when we have strep throat and when we just got back from the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Irrespective, it has to be done.
Mm.
Yeah, but sometimes it's, oh, okay. Do you sometimes not pay your gas bill when you're feeling sick? Well, no, I'd never do that. I got to pay it. It's an obligation. Okay, all right. Salah's greater than your gas bill. It's greater than that. Yeah, but sometimes I don't feel. Salah's not about a feeling. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, establish the salah for my dhikr. He didn't mention anything about feelings. He didn't mention anything about feelings.
Mm-hmm.
This is establishing Allah's rights.
Mm.
And a right, you won't always feel like 100% when you establish that right. But it's not about 100%. It's about fulfilling that right.
Oh.
Doing the right thing doesn't always feel good. Like if you stole some money, then you give the money back and it's like, oh, I could have used that money for something halal, man, after my tawbah. But that might not feel good. but it has to be done. It has to be done. You might not want to apologize to your wife or the wife not to apologize to the husband. It's like, oh man, I don't want to apologize because it's like they won that argument or they did this or did that. But still, it's got to get done. It's got to get done.
No. And what advice could you give, for example, in this case, in regards to implementation? So we the believers, we know that adab and akhlaq is important and we must implement those things with the elders, with your parents, and so forth. Now, if somebody struggles with implementing good manners with his parents, with his children, or either his wife, what steps should he or she go about in changing, trying to implement the good things that are mentioned in the religion?
Okay, alhamdulillah. This person should do three things. Number one, usually when someone struggles to implement good manners with someone, it's because of something that's in his heart towards that person. Like maybe they've had an argument, maybe they have bad relationship or whatever else. So he needs to find out why that's the case. Why that's the case. And he'll usually find out that resentment is there for some reason and get to the bottom of that resentment. The second thing is he must realize that the implementation of the good manners towards people isn't because it's something that makes you feel good or something that you do because you like them.
Mm.
It's something that's their right. So if my neighbor is not Muslim, whether I like him or not, that neighbor still has that right to be treated as a neighbor, that I don't annoy him, that I don't do certain things.
Right.
When I moved from my current property, I went and bid farewell to my neighbors. Why? Because that's their right. I'm leaving their neighborhood. I knocked on the door yesterday. I live over. Oh, yeah, I know you. You live at the house. Yeah, I'm just letting you know that I'm moving out the last of my things. Someone new will be moving in. It was a pleasure being your neighbor. If there's any problems or whatever else that you had with me when I was a neighbor, I apologize for any issues, but I'm going to be moving now. Hopefully my next neighbor will be better than me. If not better than me, then at least he won't annoy you or bother you. Oh, okay. All right. Well, thanks for letting me know that. Yeah, I'm just letting you know. So now they know it's a courtesy. When I moved in, hey, I just moved in 2 weeks ago. Just got my house together. If anything happens, if you need any help, I'm just letting you know. Oh, okay. That's their right as my neighbor. Whether they're Muslim or not is not relevant. That's still my right.
No.
So we have to know that the akhlaq that's due to people isn't because we like them. Because even if we didn't like them, even if they were our enemies, they still have rights. Even the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have rights. The third thing is that understand that these acts of akhlaq and adab, again, as we discussed before, they're acts of worship.
MashaAllah.
If you really struggle dealing with this person because maybe they've done things to you, maybe they treated you badly, maybe they took advantage of you, or maybe there were things that happened that soured your relationship towards that person. You might never reconcile to the degree that you were at before. Maybe you were never reconciled. Okay. But keep in mind that when you're around that person, when you're giving them their rights, keep in mind that forever to be done. Even if you don't like it, it's an act of worship and that you're doing so and that you're being rewarded for that righteous action. That would be the best advice I could give in that circumstance. Because within number one will be learning who gets what akhlaq, Like, okay, how are we supposed to be with the
Right.
elders? How are we supposed to be with young people? That's going to be within number one, because
No.
when they're saying, why don't I want to help this person? Well, they might feel, oh, well, this person's younger than me. He's inferior. He doesn't deserve to be treated with respect. Because in some cultures, they do have this idea that younger people or subordinates, like they don't deserve respect or whatever
No.
else, like they're not supposed, and that's wrong, because they have rights as well. Children have the rights of akhlaq that they're supposed to be treated with. Wives, oh, well, she's only my daughter-in-law. She's not like she's a real daughter. So they have this attitude. It's like, no, they still have their ahkam. Oh, well, he's my son-in-law, but he's the younger son-in-law. Or he's the middle son. So he doesn't get the full rights as the elder son. Or she's the baby daughter. So because she's my baby
No.
girl, she gets way better treatment than the elder. No, all that's wrong. All that's wrong. Yeah, but in our culture, well, on that issue, your culture is wrong. So you're saying our culture is wrong on that issue, yeah. And it takes bravery to be able to stand against an ada or an urf when it's dead wrong.
No.
But you have to be able to distinguish between the culture as a whole and aspects of it that are not to be obeyed. Because there are some parts, no matter what people it is, there are aspects in my Bedouin culture that just you can't obey that. Because if you do, you'll be doing haram. And I don't obey it.
Oh.
And it puts me at odds with people sometimes because I don't do it. I don't acknowledge it. I don't accept it. And I tell people, listen, I'm coming over, or you're going to visit me. I'm not going to do such and such thing. I'm just not going to do it. And you have to be able to do that to be able to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Children have their rights of adab and akhlaq due to them. Wives have their rights and adab and akhlaq due to them. Husbands have their rights and adab and akhlaq due to them. Parents have their right and adab and akhlaq that are due to them. Right? Irrespective. Right? Even if someone says, oh, well, the parents are kafir. Okay, well, they still have their rights, though. Whatever their rights are, they still have their rights. That doesn't mean if they give you sound advice, well, because they're kafir, they gave me sound advice, but because they're kafir, I don't have to accept it. No, that's false. You still accept that advice. If a kafir parent tells you, hey, take the trash out, you still got to take it out.
No.
Yeah, but he's kafir. You still got to take it out.
Right. Oh. And can we take knowledge from a teacher who has bad manners?
There was an incident that Abdullah Mubarak radiallahu anhu mentioned where there was a man in class and he was writing on a board for some students, and the dots for the ya were in the wrong place. And Abdullah Mubarak said, I wouldn't take from that man.
Oh.
Because he wasn't giving the letters their rights.
Wow.
Now, we understand from that, because Najmuddin al-Maqdisi and others, rahimahumullah, mentioned this conversation. We understand from that when someone knows how to carry out their obligations and they don't, that person wouldn't be taken from. But in a circumstance in which you have an environment where akhlaq and adab are lacking because in general, maybe invasion, or maybe of other issues, or maybe it's not a topic that's studied because people say, well, some people don't think that's part of the deen, like adab and akhlaq, that's not part of the deen, like how you treat your guest, that's not part of the deen, that's what we do.
No.
So you might have to alter your understanding because there might be widespread ignorance of it. So in a circumstance where there's widespread ignorance of it, then you might give that person that is lacking in adab and akhlaq more pardon than someone who would know better and who should know better. For someone who should, that's different. For someone who should.
No.
But in environments where you see widespread ignorance of things, like so if you see in an environment that there's widespread ignorance of Islam, you would emphasize the most fundamental matters first, the salah, these other things, because you group the fundamentals with the most severe fundamentals, the things where there's what's called Taghlil, where the threats in this life and the hereafter are definite and they're repeated. You emphasize those things first. And then the others that don't have that Taghlil are not the same, right? So In the case of a Muslim sister, the salah and how she's covered in the salah, those aspects are obligations, they're compulsory.
No.
But outside of the salah, the hijab, say outside of the house, those are obligations, but they're not as severe as the obligation for salah.
Subhanallah.
The severity of it.
Wow.
So you emphasize those things after. We're talking about an environment where there's widespread ignorance.
Right.
So in an environment where, let's say the Muslim sister, she doesn't cover at all, but in salah she does, or let's say she doesn't. So it's like, okay, so where do we start from? So, well, she should be making hijab. Okay. She should be making salah. Okay. She should be making istinja. Okay. She should be making wudu. But none of those things are being done. So where do we start from? Okay. Well, we start from the obligations where there's Taghlil, where there's consistent warnings in this life and the hereafter in the Quran and Sunnah, and it's repeated, which will be at-tahur shatr al-iman. Purification is half of iman. Okay, so we need to start off with like istinja. We need to start off with wudu. We need to start off with salah. Yeah, but she covers up and everything like she's supposed to in salah, but the moment she finishes, she takes it off and goes outside. All right, we're trying to get established on the salah right now. We're trying to get established on that. What you're saying is true, but it's not more important than the salah, the istinja, and the wudu right now. Once those things become her norm, where they just become her regular habit, okay, now we start talking about covering. You know how you're dressed in the salah, everything else? Yeah. You should really be doing that outside of salah as well. We talk about those things after. But initially, we have to talk about the most severe of things first. Her relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Her wudu, purification, salah, her obligations that she owes herself as a believer. So if she's involved in immorality, we're pushing away from immorality, whether it's the immorality of the tongue, immorality of the eyes, immorality of the hands and feet, immorality of the private parts, push away from those things, right? Then we can start to talk about other aspects. But often what will happen with some of the slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is they will view all the obligations as one thing. And put them all. But those obligations, some obligations come into effect after other obligations come into effect. So for example, istinja is a condition for wudu, for someone who's broken the wudu. It's a condition. Oh, okay. And wudu is a condition for salah. Well, the time of the salah and covering the awrah is a condition for the salah. Right. So you understand there's like a pattern that develops. Everything is conditioned on other things. And the other thing can't come into effect unless the thing before it that allows it is also been established. But some people are trying to get you into, well, the sister, she needs to be covering outside the salah. Wait a minute, hold on. She's not even making salah.
Yeah. Often it's the opposite is happening here.
Or she's not even doing these things, which are the things that need to happen before the things that you want to happen. So Muslim brothers get angry. Muslim brother, he did it in front of his wife, and it kind of humiliated her because he said, well, look at my wife. She doesn't cover and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, okay, well, if she's establishing her salah and her other things and you work on those things, she might wind up covering without you even needing to have these conversations anymore. But much of the time, the reason why you're having these conversations is because there are other obligations that she's not doing. But you're stressing so hard on this one obligation that's preceded by other obligations. And that's why these other ones aren't happening. So someone who's engaged in intoxication, regular drunkenness, I'm not going to be talking to her about the headscarf. I'm going to be talking to her about the drunkenness. Why? Because that affects the validity of her salah.
Indeed, mashallah.
Don't come near salah while you're intoxicated. So I've got to worry about that first. Hey, listen, you're not making salah while you're like that, are you? Well, sometimes I have DMT and I make no, you can't do that. I'm worried about that. Well, it helps me focus on my salah if I have ketamine and then I make salah because the world just goes away. No, can't do that. I worry about those things. Then once that's established, then we can start to worry about other obligations that come into effect after previous obligations that make them necessary, make those things necessary. Those are conditions. So something conditions something else. So istinja is a condition for wudu. Wudu is a condition for salah. Covering the awrah and the time of the salah and those other things are conditions for salah. The opening takbir is a condition for entering into the salah. The taslim is the condition for being able to exit salah. Like these are all like things. Then you have like the pillars of salah. Then you have the wajibs of salah. And then if those things, okay, well, what happens if something happens to us? How do we repair them? Okay, well, sujood sahu is conditioned upon three things. Sometimes sujood sahu is wajib, sometimes it's mustahab, and sometimes it's merely permitted. And you need to know these things when to carry them out. You have to know these things.
No.
But sometimes people are looking at all the obligations as one obligation, but some obligations come into effect after other obligations have come into effect beforehand.
So basically this whole principle that you explain now is whenever we see some cases, let's say the example given, shortcomings in adab and akhlaq, if there is a more important aspect, let's say the person has errors in foundational theology or isn't proper preparing for that, we should put adab and akhlaq at the side for the time being, focus on what's the most necessary, and then slowly build from that point onwards.
This is correct, because those other things won't have value yet until the things that give them meaning are resolved.
Subhanallah.
So someone that's angry or someone that's saying, I don't understand why my son doesn't do this or my daughter doesn't do this and do that. Okay, the things that would obligate those things coming to effect, does he or she do them? Well, no. Okay, well, then you have to work on those first.
Right.
Because those other things aren't going to happen until those are done.
No.
So it's like if when you look at someone, oh yeah, this Muslim brother, he's always shaving. He doesn't have an excuse to shave his beard. He's always shaving his beard. All right. Does he have any health conditions, allergies, ingrown hair, anything like that? Well, I'll check into that. I'll find out. Okay, I looked into it. No, he doesn't have any of those issues. Okay. All right. Where's he from? Oh, he's from so-and-so. Okay. Well, he's grown up in northern China. So he's grown up seeing his father shave in the mirror, and when he's little kid, he wanted to be like his father. So he grew up like that. Okay. That's going to take time to break that custom to understand what is masculine, what's not masculinity. Because he's seen that come for more than 17 years. Now 25. So the point of that is that the person who has seen people without beards shave their beards, because the culture that he came up in was a culture in which it was seen that having a beard was unkempt or not cleanly, or maybe the example that he saw people having beards as they were not very clean, or he was told it's not clean, or maybe he asked his father, why don't we have beards? Why do we not have them? And he said, well, it's because those people aren't clean, or it's not cultural, or it doesn't give you that smooth cut. It doesn't make your skin smooth. Ladies don't like it. And he's then seen all the commercials from Gillette or other things like that, where the man is, only Gillette razors can give you that smooth cut. And he sees that, yeah, that's what I want. I want a smooth cut. And it shows women around the guy and they're rubbing his face. Yeah, that's what I want. So it takes time to unravel those issues when there's been a culture of face shaving that's been around you. It takes time to undermine that and to get back on the track with the fitrah. But someone has to balance those obligations with the more severe obligations. And the more severe obligations are the regular ones regarding salah and personal purification. Those ones will come before beard shaving or not beard shaving. Those obligations will come before that.
Now, alhamdulillah, we have discussed many things in regards to knowledge and implementation. Before we close, I want to ask, what advice or advices would you give the believers here in the West in regards to the knowledge that they have and how they should work towards implementing it and its importance?
Alhamdulillah. I would give some 5 advices. The first advice is to try to be around reliable people that encourage you to be your best, and they make you want to strive to perfect your manners and your character. The second, you want to find someone reliable, either in this group or from another, that can give you the obligatory knowledge of your deen. You must know what are the pillars of Iman and their detailed matters. What are the pillars of Islam and their detailed matters? What are the pillars of Ihsan and their detailed matters? And the signs and of time and to prepare for the day of resurrection and its detailed matters. You must know these things. The third is to deal with your awliyat. Your awliyat are your priorities. Some obligations have priorities over others. Make sure you're being taught your priorities, your priority knowledge first, so that you're an asset and a benefit for yourself and your family. The fourth thing is to not take on obligations or affairs until you've understood what the ruling is, the background to it, and who's responsible. Because you might be taking on obligations before you're ready for them, before you've completed the other obligations that necessitate those obligations. Or you might not be the one being addressed in those ayat or ahadith regarding the said obligation. And you might be trying to do too many things at once, and you might overwhelm yourself. The fifth and final thing is that you want to always remember all of the detailed obligations can fall down into two main things, which is that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger of Allah, and all things emanate from those. If you strive to be sincere in that declaration, you strive to be truthful in that declaration, you strive to be upright in those things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide you aright. So will the group that you belong to of trustworthy people that you have, or that one trustworthy person that you have that can teach you the deen. Those things will come together. But don't despair and lose hope by saying, oh, there are so many laws and so many rules, because not all those laws and rules apply to you. So understand what you must do so that you can carry it out. And then, as also part of this fifth and final one, is don't go outside of your circle when it's not time for you. So your obligations and the people that you must tend to, you, your parents, your wife, your immediate family. If those are not in proper working order, you cannot go outside of those when you have not established those people. When those people are established to a certain degree, then you can start to consider your town, your city, your county. But you must work intelligently and you must work righteously within your group. So the Rasulullah, his first order of business was calling his near relatives, the Quraysh, then the other clans associated with Quraysh from Bani Adi, then the Kinana, and then he started sending letters to the world. So he worked in a very particular pattern, and we should try to do the same thing, inshallah.
Subhanallah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Jazakallah khairan wa barakallah fika ya Shaykh. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, hopefully we'll gather again soon for another recording. So thank you very much for your time and teaching us. And in closing, I say, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.